What's up everyone, welcome to Keeping It LCFC Drive Time. I did this video this morning and I was about 10 minutes away from being finished with it and I completely forgot what I was talking about. I had an absolute mind blank. I can't even remember what I was talking about when I forgot what I was talking about. I think I got onto coronavirus somehow, not sure how I got there. But yeah, then it was just dead air space of me looking confused, and I thought, I don't edit my videos. I tend to leave them like organic, so because I don't edit it, I was like, I can't leave a massive gap in the middle of the video of just me looking confused about how I've ended up where I've ended up and what I'm talking about. So I just thought, you know what, I'll try and do it again, and it'll probably be different to the video that would have come out this morning because that's just how my videos work. So the sun's in my eyes. So, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to go on, we're going to talk a little bit about, obviously the result of the weekend, the big win, the important win against Aston Villa, the Birmingham Cup win as well as the defeat against Norwich, and just a few other bits and pieces surrounding the club that have come out the last couple of days. So, we'll start with the Norwich defeat. Now, I deliberately did bring a video out after this game, because I kind of already felt like it would be quite negative. It was just another performance that lacked any sort of attacking positivity from our part. I don't think we played very well at all. Didn't create any really good chances, didn't threaten Norwich really in any way, and that's disappointing given the situation they're in. It was a game where I felt, similar to the Aston Villa game on Monday, that if we score first goal, we win the game, because these sides are battling so hard for points that if they go 1-0 down, they'll open up. Exactly what Aston Villa did. Now, we were playing really well against Aston Villa before we went 1-0 up, but as soon as they went 1-0 down, the spaces opened up. You started to see the spaces appear out wide, and as soon as we brought Vardy on 60 minutes, he gets the penalty 2 minutes later, or rather Barnes gets the penalty 2 minutes later. But it just opened it all up for us, so it allowed us to be a little bit more creative, find those spaces and exploit it. So, and that I think will be the case again against Watford. Nigel Pearson will have Watford set up incredibly well. We know what sort of manager he is. He's going to be looking probably to try and soak up and use the pace of Ismaila Sarr on the break to try and capitalise on spaces that we're going to leave, or that we have, you know, notoriously left in behind in the fullback area in Ricardo and usually Chilwell, but probably should be as well James Justin this weekend. I think he was absolutely brilliant against Aston Villa, James Justin, and I'll come on to him a little bit later on. So the Norwich game was poor, the result was poor. I can't think of anything good to say about it. I don't want to dwell on it for too long. We just lacked any sort of real penetration, any real incisiveness. Tempo in our attacking play was down. Taking too many touches, not having options to move the ball into. I can think of, I lost count of the amount of times that someone like a Chilwell got past the ball by one of the centre-backs and his only option is to go back to the centre-backs or try and play a line ball to Barnes. And while you want him to play that line ball to Barnes, it becomes predictable. It becomes obvious, so the only ball is to go backwards. The crowd start getting on his case, his confidence, his head drops, and things don't happen for us. But we have to be better as a team of reading the game when we're in possession. What I mean by that is, if the ball goes back into the centre-back from the left-hand side, let's say Chilwell plays into Soyuncu. As that ball's travelling to Soyuncu, Evans should be on the move, Tielemans or Dennis Pratt should be on the move, Ndidi should be on the move, trying to create an angle for a one-touch pass out so that we can move that ball a little bit quicker. Ricardo should be thinking about it. Albrighton or Ozzy Perez should be thinking, okay, it's gone into Soyuncu, it might then go into the middle, can I then be an angle for a one-touch pass out of midfield? So we're bypassing when we're getting through the transition areas on the field a lot quicker than we are at the moment. It's not something we're very good at. It's something I've seen us do that well in recent weeks. It's not an easy thing to do, but at professional level, at Premier League level, I feel like the players should be good enough and have good enough anticipation ability to be able to do this. We started to see it a little bit when the confidence came back against Aston Villa. We were taking less touches, we were moving the ball in one touch. Tielemans, just knowing that Mark Albright would be behind him for that back heel. We played a lovely little bit of one-touch football in and around the box, and we just couldn't quite get on the end product of it. But that's the sort of football that we need to see more often. That's how you break down a set defence as well. So these things need to be happening, and thinking one or two passes ahead, especially as attacking players. We've got to be trying to create those angles. Far too often I see Leicester in possession and runs aren't being made until the ball has been received by whoever's receiving it. So Chilwell will play the ball back in to Söyüncü or Evans. The movement's being made by, let's say, Schmeichel's offering himself or Evans is offering himself, but the midfield's not offering themselves quick enough. And what tends to happen, and it happened probably in the first 10 minutes against Aston Villa as well, is that the three centre midfielders either sit behind the midfield line of whoever we're playing against. I put a tweet out during the Villa game actually, saying that, you know, you've got Pratt, Maddison and Ndidi all stood behind a line of 5 Aston Villa midfielders. Now, if you've got a defender that's capable of playing that pass out, then of course you've got the option to try and play a pass through, but it's a massively risky pass, and if you lose possession, they're straight onto your 2 centre-backs, because the 2 full-backs would have pushed forwards. So you have to be better at creating those spaces to come and get it, and Ndidi 100% should have been further back to give that option. And then you're looking at making those little movements off the ball, those angles, so that if Ndidi receives it, he can pop the ball out in one touch. It's something that we haven't been great at in recent weeks. We definitely did a better job of it late on against Birmingham, and then again against Aston Villa. So hopefully that sort of confidence belief has come back to start making those runs. But it's been a real issue for us since its turn of the year. I don't feel our final third play is good enough, and that shows massively in the amount of chances that Jamie Vardy has had when he's played, or Iheanacho has had when he's played. The amount of chances they're actually getting are so low. I think Vardy had 2 shots in 2 games. So that's 180 minutes of football, and we've only managed to get him 2 shots. So it's something that we need to work on, something we need to improve on. Personnel-wise, I think we need to be looking at getting better in the summer. I was having a little listen to a First for LCFC podcast earlier, actually, and they were sort of saying that, when you look at the bench of the other teams in and around the top 4, with probably the exception of maybe a Sheffield United or a bit further back, our bench isn't full of talent that worries you about coming on. There's good players in there. I'm not slagging our players off. We've got very, very good players. When you look around, when Vardy's not on the bench, and you've got Iheanacho, and you're looking around at who we're going to bring on up front to change the game, and you're looking and you've got no one, or you need a little bit of pace out wide, and you're looking into the bench and you've got Mark Albright. Now again, I love Mark Albright. I think he's a very, very good footballer. I've said before, I don't think that his skill set fits what Brendan Rodgers wants to do. But in the last 2 games, Mark Albrighton has proved how good of a footballer he is. And on a horses for courses team selection, if you need a player that will find that half yard and get a ball in, will run himself into the ground for 90 minutes, will cover your fullback to stop him getting overexposed, because we have an attacking fullback, so you need a winger who's prepared to drop in, to get back, to help out in the 2v1 situations. Mark Albrighton is your man for that. 100% Mark Albrighton's your man for that, and it showed against Aston Villa, because in the 2 League Cup games against Aston Villa, Ricardo got 2v1 by Matt Targett and Jack Grealish so often. And it's no doubt that Dean Smith targeted it as an area. He looked at our fullbacks, said Leicester's fullbacks get forward, especially Ricardo. Loves to get forward, and he's very, very good at it. He's brilliant at it, in fact. We've seen him do it. He gets goals, he gets assists, but when he gets forward and Perez plays in front of him, there is a massive hole on our right-hand side of the field, which Aston Villa have exploited massively. What tends to happen then, if they do get into that space, you're looking at one of your centre-backs goes over, which is the natural thing to do, and that's fine. So you're losing Evans out the middle. And if he's getting exposed by a player like Jack Grealish and Matt Targett in a 2v1, then he's going to be exposed too. So then if they are able to get across in the box, our only aerial threat in the box to clear it is probably going to be Söyüncü. If it doesn't go near him, or he gets beaten in the air, or whatever, then there's going to be goals at the end of it. So it causes a lot of problems when you create an overload against yourself. By having attacking fullbacks, essentially you're committing to leaving space in your back four. When you have a player like Ndidi, and we saw it against Aston Villa, when you have a player like Ndidi in the midfield, it does give you that comfort blanket, similar to how we used to have with N'Golo Kante, although Danny Simpson was a defender's defender. He wasn't an attacking fullback like a Ricardo is, so he did all of Riyad Mahrez's defensive work and he was exceptional at it. But on the other side, Fuchs got forward on the regular. We had Albrighton out on that side of the field quite a lot as well during that season. So we had the players that we gave ourselves enough cover. We had a balance to the team. When Perez and Ricardo play at the moment, there's an imbalance in our team on that side of the field. So it's something we got right. We definitely got that right against Aston Villa this time. And I think Brendan Rodgers swallowed a little bit of pride for this fixture, and he took Jack Grealish out of Aston Villa's attack, essentially, by playing Albrighton on that side. And Albrighton defended, and I think he carried out his game plan 100% perfectly. There's a couple of times I even saw the ball was being played around Aston Villa's defence. It would go into Mings, and you'd see Albrighton sort of half think to go, and then he'd drop back in, because he knew if he went in and pressed and they managed to get that ball into midfield or out to target, then Ricardo was going to be exposed in a 2v1. And you just saw him drop off, and it allowed Mings to play it out, and straight away Albrighton was on that pass to the fullback. Or if Pereira went on to the fullback, then Albrighton would duck in. I mean, I saw it at least 2 or 3 times. You saw Albrighton threaten to go in, realised that what would happen if he did, and just pulled out. And it gave us that defensive cover that Villa then couldn't use their best player. Now, Jack Grealish is an absolutely brilliant player. I would sign him in a heartbeat, but he's a great player in a very, very poor team. He cannot carry them all of the time, and if you deliberately set up tactics to nullify him, as we did, we saw how little Aston Villa created. They had a couple of little attacks in the first 10 minutes. Conor Hourihane should have done a lot better, but apart from that, Schmeichel was never really tested. There was one shot in the second half that I think went through Soyuncu's legs that Schmeichel gathered. We were under no real threat, and I feel like Brendan Rodgers setting up with a game plan to combat an Aston Villa threat, as well as allowing us to create our own threats, was better than what we did in the League Cup. Mark Albrighton's come out recently and said that they underestimated Aston Villa in the Cup games. Harvey Barnes has said that we owed them one after the Cup games. You know, we felt like, you know, they'd got 2 games over on us, and we missed out on our opportunity to play at Wembley. We missed out on a chance at silverware that we're so desperate to win, and we owed them that performance. There's an element of revenge there. It's a bit of a local derby. There'd been recent history given the Cup games that these players wanted to show that actually they were good enough. Now, whereas in the first game at Villa Park we tactically outclassed Aston Villa, we completely changed setup for that game, and I don't think Villa were expecting it. In the League Cup games, we had sort of an arrogance or a tactical stubbornness that we just thought, we'll just do what we're going to do and we'll be good enough to beat you. Now, teams like Man City and Liverpool might be able to get away with that because they're full of world-class players. We have some very, very good footballers. We have a couple of players who I would maybe just say get in a world-class category at what they do in their specific abilities. They're not a world-class all-round players, but in terms of what they do, they are world-class at it. Jamie Vardy is the best at what he does. That in-off-the-shoulder striker, that give me a chance and I'll finish it. He doesn't need many opportunities to put the ball in the back of the net. He's world-class at it. That high press, that win the ball. You saw it against Aston Villa. He got that ball, he tried to square it, he ricocheted it, and in 2 touches it was in, and it was past Pepe Reina before he even had a chance to get down. Rooney's beating him at his near post. Johnny Evans, I would put potentially in a world-class centre-back category. You see the difference he's made to Harry Maguire when he played. You see the difference he makes to our defence now. Soyuncu is a much, much better player with Johnny Evans next to him. I would potentially put him in that world-class bracket. I think the fullback, in Ricardo Pereira, I think he's knocking on the world-class door of being a really, really exceptional fullback and have great, great ability. So, you know, we're not peppered with world-class footballers. We have a few. We cannot afford to be as arrogant to just think we'll turn up and our players will be good enough. And we've been caught out with that a couple of times. Southampton at home. We we weren't good enough. Norwich, Burnley, teams we should be beating. And the frustration is we're 8 points clear of Man United, who are in 5th place. And we've taken 1 point off Norwich this season. If you convert that into 6 points, we're 13 points ahead of Man United in 5th place with 9 games to go. It's a massive disappointment that we haven't picked up maximum points out of Norwich, but you can't knock Norwich for what they did. They outplayed us at the King Power, and I would argue they outplayed us at Carrow Road. They played some really, really nice football in the final third. The finish that they got, Chilwell was exposed at left back. He was done for pace. He's tried to nip in and win the ball. He's missed the challenge, and Jamal Lewis or Aarons goes past him, puts the ball over, and it's actually a terrible cross, but nobody reacts to it. Perez is nowhere to be seen. That's the opposite fullback, so you can argue that Pereira is not quick enough to get on the press, but that's the fullback from the other side. Pereira can't cover both. Perez should be covering that run. He doesn't. It's a great finish from Jamal Lewis, but it's come from our own errors, our own little lapses in play. So we then come on to the Birmingham game. I've sort of dotted around all over the place here. The Birmingham game in the FA Cup. Now, again, I don't think we played that well. It was great to see Brendan Rodgers name a strong side, and I think the fact that we had that game coming up as quickly after the Norwich game was actually really, really positive for us. Sometimes when you've lost a game, you want a game straight away, and it's exactly what we got. And we were at home in front of the home crowd. So having that game in midweek, I think, was a massive, massive thing for us, and it was a massive positive. It meant they weren't able to dwell on the fact that they lost to bottom of the league. It meant that we were straight into preparing for another game. The motivation would have been there solely on the fact that it's an opportunity to get to a Wembley semi-final or a cup final that they've missed out on. I heard Rodgers say that he wanted them to bottle that feeling of watching Aston Villa celebrate on the field when they were going to the Carabao Cup final. So to know what it feels like, to make sure that they do everything they can to make sure it doesn't happen again. They don't leave things out on the field. They don't take things for granted. And I think that, in hindsight, that defeat to Villa could be a positive for us. It might spur them on in similar way to how the Deeney moment, the greatest moment in football history, unless you're a Leicester fan, in a similar way to that hurt, that feeling that we all felt that day was a massive, massive part of how good we were the season after. That squad was galvanised. They made sure they didn't leave it to chance again. They made sure it wasn't going to be the playoffs. We were brilliant that season in the Championship. We absolutely dominated it. We won the league with a record points tally, and we got ourselves into the Premier League. That Deeney moment, whilst in the preceding weeks, hours, days after, was probably, in terms of being a football fan, with the exception of getting relegated to League One, was up there with the worst feelings as a football fan can have. You're seconds away from a playoff final. You've got your penalty. 45 seconds later, you're staying in the division, and someone else is going to a Wembley final. So that defeat to Aston Villa, like I said, could actually turn out to be a blessing in disguise for us. That feeling of disappointment and hurt might sit with those players, might resonate with those players. We got that close, and we took our eye off the ball, and we're not going to let that happen again. We're going to do everything we can to try and ensure it doesn't happen again. Control what we can control. Make sure that when we get into those positions, when we get out on the field, we force ourselves on it, we take our opportunities, and we don't leave it to chance. And it felt like the game against Birmingham, like I say, first 45 minutes, we were poor. They weren't much better. It was a poor game. Second half, we were much better. We did play some better football, and getting that goal when we did, makes that win feel like a bigger and better win than it was. The reason I say that, you score a late goal, everyone's buzzing, it's late in the game, you're looking at it, you're thinking, it's going to go to a replay, or straight to penalties. and you're thinking, oh, it's going to go to the sort of lottery, the extra time, the penalties. You just want to get it over and done with. You don't want a further half an hour. You don't want that lottery of penalties, which, you know, it only takes somebody guessing the right way as a keeper to end the game for you. To get that late goal, as fans, late goals feel better than early goals, especially if you're going to win a game. So let's just say we went 1-0 up. Similar to the the Brentford game, we went 1-0 up really, really early, and then we're pretty poor for the rest of the game, and it feels like a bit of a flat performance. Everyone's coming off like, oh, we've got through, and that's great. That's all you want to see in cup football, but we haven't played that well. When you win late, that confidence boost, that elation, that adrenaline is a much bigger feeling because it's come late in the game. That's how I feel anyway. So I think that game meant a lot to those players. It proved a point for them. I feel like it would have been a massive confidence booster, really, really important for them to get that belief back, that they remained patient, they kept going. And again, credit to Albrighton for his work on setting that goal up. He worked incredibly hard, he twisted, he turned, he found that half yard, he just got a ball over, and Ricardo was in the box. Now, having players in the box has been an issue for us in recent weeks. We've been putting crosses in, and we've had a striker and a winger in the box, and that's it. There's been a real lack of attacking players getting into the box, getting into that final third, and to see Ricardo get on the end of it, he's a fan favourite of ours obviously, and he's done well to get a header, generated good power, put it in the far corner across the league camp, and sent us through into the quarterfinals where we will meet Chelsea. So then we come over from the Birmingham win, which, as I say, would have felt like a bigger win, a better win than it actually was given how late it was. We've then got a game again in another few days, and you're thinking, okay, and it's a game against Aston Villa, who have, you know, recently, the weekend that we played Norwich, they're playing in a Wembley final. So the weekend that we've lost to Norwich, probably, you know, one of our poorest performances of the season, they've got their Wembley final. And fair play to Villa, they did okay against Man City in the Carabao Cup final. They were okay, they weren't spectacular. I mean, they gave themselves the best chances they could. But it would have felt to those Leicester players that they took our chance, excuse me, so that they took their cup final away from them. So they would have been going out there with a little bit extra incentive. Villa came out first 10 minutes really high energy as well. So the first 10 minutes was very, very end to end. We had the better chances, but Villa had more of the ball. After that first sort of 10, 12, 15 minute spell though, we absolutely took control of that game. You could feel the confidence growing, and it was just that matter of time before that goal came. And as soon as that goal came, as I said, I feel like if we go 1-0 up against teams down sort of mid-table, lower reaches, we'll win the game, because we've got the confidence in possession to be able to keep it and move it and work it and try and move them around. They'll have to open up to chase getting a goal back, because a lot, especially down there, they're desperate for points. So getting the first goal was massively important, and you could see it in the players and you could see it in the crowd, that the belief started to come back. We'd got that goal. It was our first league goal in 3. We'd drawn 3 blanks. We only managed 1 against the Championship side. The sort of negativity around our goal scoring was creeping in. From myself as well, it was getting frustrating. The fact that we weren't able to create as many chances as we have been. That Harvey Barnes goal, whilst it was a gift from Pepe Reina, it was superb work initially from Iheanacho and then from Albrighton again. Iheanacho does brilliantly well to pick that ball. I can't remember whose pocket he picks, but he picks a pocket, it ends up going into Albrighton. Albrighton does brilliantly well. Barnes is on the run. He's a little bit slow to start his run, Barnes, because you can sort of see Albrighton looking for that pass a little bit earlier than Barnes makes the run. But nonetheless, he retains possession. He gets that ball over the top with his left foot into Harvey Barnes. Keeper's come out into absolute no man's land. Don't know what he's thinking. Be fuming if it was Kasper Schmeichel. So he's come out into no man's land. Barnes has done very, very well. Kept his head, taken that little touch around the keeper, and then he's still got a lot to do. There's 3 Villa players back there, 2 of which are getting back on the line. Iheanacho takes up a great space, and you can sort of see Iheanacho's a little bit disappointed. Originally, he doesn't play the ball to him. But Barnes does brilliant really well to finish it. It's It's a good goal. It's a great finish. It puts us 1-0 up, and you can just, as I said, you can just feel that momentum shift, that belief come back into the side. Half time probably came at a bit of a poor time for us, given that we were sort of we in the ascendancy there, and there was always that worry that, similar to how it's been before, that when you come out after half time, that the momentum sort of drops a little bit. That 15-minute break is the last thing you want, and but we didn't. We continued to look good. We continued to play nice football. We continued to absolutely dominate the game, creating a couple of other chances. And then on 60 minutes, you see Vardy come on, and the crowd again is lifted. That belief is back. Our man's back. Our talisman's back. He's coming on. Iheanacho has had one of them days in front of goal. It was just one of them things for him. You sort of felt sorry for him, bless him. He's had that header, he's had the one-on-one, and he's had that pass, I think, where he receives it about 7 yards out, and his first touch is just, it's all over the place. It's that of a steam train, just lost it. And Iheanacho's been great. I'm not knocking Kelechi Iheanacho, and the fact that we won the game 4-0 means that his misses don't matter. I think had we maybe drawn that game 0-0, or if we'd lost it, there would have been a lot more criticism coming his way. But I think he did very, very well for the team. He creates things for us. He creates chances for himself. He gets in good positions. He's a good centre forward. He's a very, very good footballer. It just wasn't to be his day. And you could see when Vardy came on, the whole crowd's up. They're singing, they're chanting, they're getting behind him. And again, that little bit more belief comes back. And within 2 minutes of being on, we've got ourselves a penalty. Side note on that, I don't think it's a penalty. I tweeted about it at the time. For me, it's not handball. I can see why the referee is giving it, because he's seen it come off. He's seen the arm go out as he goes to the floor, but it doesn't hit his arm. Now, regardless of the movement of his arm, to me, it's still not a penalty. It doesn't hit him on the arm. If it had hit him on the arm, then yeah, totally agree with it. If it hits him on the shoulder. What I did notice, though, which for me was actually quite a pleasing thing to see, was that as soon as it happened, you saw Vardy's arm go up. You saw Maddison go to the referee. You saw Barnes' arm go up, looking for that penalty, putting that little seed of doubt, that little thought in the referee's mind. And it was something that we didn't do at all on the Nakamba one in the League Cup. Nobody really appealed for that handball, probably more out of the fact that he's just going to give it, it's obvious. But you could see the noted difference in the players. They saw that and they said, you know what, I'm not going to leave it a chance. I'm going to put that little seed of thought in the referee's mind. The arms go up, they're claiming for handball. In the end, the referee gives it. I've seen the first replay and I'm thinking, this is going to get overturned here. Obviously, I'm glad it wasn't. And Jamie Vardy, with his first touch, just smash it. I remember I tweeted it out before he took it. Just smash it. Don't worry about trying to place it, okay? Because when we try and place penalties, we're not very good at them. And even if you smash it and the keeper guesses the right way, that ball's travelling so quick, the chances are he's not going to save it. The Paul Gallagher penalty, I've mentioned it before. He doesn't mess around. Even if keepers dive the right way, 99 times out of 100, they're not getting there anyway, because that ball is past them so fast. So fast. Vardy goes up, he smashes it down the middle, Reina dives out the way, we're 2-0 up, the game's over, Villa heads have totally gone then, and then you see us play some love, you start to see us play some brilliant football, you start to see the players come out of position, and you see us really start to look more like that team that we were before Christmas, that October, November team, that September team that just looked capable of beating anybody that was put in front of them, that could take teams apart for fun. They started to look more like that team. There was some really, really nice 1-2 touch football. There was chances being created. The goal for the third goal for Vardy, typical Jamie Vardy. He's got in down the side. Gilbert has had an absolute torrid afternoon with Harvey Barnes initially. Vardy pulls out onto him as Barnes picked up the ball. He's played in. He's tried to cut the ball across. He's taken a ricochet. Vardy's totally on the ball. He's taken one touch and he's smashed it. It's 3-0. The Villa heads have totally gone. By the time the fourth goal comes around, which is an absolutely brilliant team move, Barnes' run is superb, and he's hit the back of the net before Rain has even really started his dive. The game's over. We've created other chances after that, and as I said, it just sort of felt like that confidence, that belief, that sort of swagger that we had in the first half of the season started to return. Now, we have to back it up against Watford. Okay, there is no doubt now that, yeah, it's a great win. We needed it, given the fact that Chelsea and Man United have both won, and had we lost, it would be 5 points and 2 points instead of 5 points and 8 points. So we've got there, we've got that win. It was a big win for us, but we have to back it up against Watford now on the weekend. Obviously they're going to be without Gerard Deulofeu, which is a big bonus for us. Ismail Assar's pace will be, I feel like, Watford's game plan against us. Can they try and exploit those spaces left by our fullbacks? Personally, I wouldn't change the 11, with probably the exception of Vardy starting ahead of Iheanacho if he's fit enough. For me, James Justin was absolutely brilliant against Aston Villa. I'm a big Ben Chilwell fan. I want to see Ben Chilwell develop and thrive, but you can't knock a guy like James Justin, who's come into his first Premier League home start and done what he did in that game. I think he was absolutely brilliant. His touch was superb. The couple of times he brought the ball out of the sky with a great touch. He showed superb ability in getting forward, great pace in getting forward, can go on his left foot or his right foot. Was unlucky when he went through, and I think Gilbert just got a toe ender on it. So he played really, really well, and defensively he was pretty solid as well, and he's got that pace more than Chilwell that gets him out of trouble if he's slightly out of position. And obviously having Ndidi in there is a big booster for anyone, because you've got that defensive cover, that defensive shield that allows us to drop into a back three essentially if we're out of possession. So if Söyüncü or Evans have got to go out, and Ndidi slots into that middle area, and we're covered defensively. So for me, I wouldn't change the 11, with the exception of Vardy starting ahead of Iheanacho if we're going to make that change. We have to be aware of the Ismail Assar threat going the other way. I feel like Evans and Söyüncü should be able to deal with Troy Deeney. Evans especially, seasoned pro. Söyüncü loves the physicality of the game, so they should be capable of dealing with that. And then it's just going to be about breaking Watford down. If we get an early goal, they're going to open up. It's going to create even more space for us, and we've got the ability there to capitalise on it. We have got better players than Watford, but we have to go out and prove it again. We can't take it for granted at all that we're just going to go out there and win, but we've got to start putting results together to make sure we don't let our great start to the season fall away. So looking at that, like I say, Watford will be brilliantly organised. Nigel Pearson have a really nicely set up, and they'll be a tough nut to crack for us. We don't usually do well in early kickoffs either, so hopefully we can end that hoodoo and get ourselves a positive result. Looking at a couple other things, a couple more negatives from today. I put a tweet out about this. I'm all for football banter and jokes and songs and chants about giving other teams grief, etc. There's certain lines I don't think that should be crossed, and as Leicester fans especially, we know what they are. Okay, we are very, very protective, and rightly so, of Vichai and songs and tweets, etc. about him. And rightfully so. It's disgusting, it should never happen. But health and mental health is another thing that I just don't feel that jokes, songs, chants and things should be made about. And I know people will say, oh, it's just a bit of fun, it's only this, it's only that, but the Nottingham Forest chairman having coronavirus or whatever is not something to make jokes about. It's not funny. As I said, as Leicester fans, we should know better. I know an illness is different to what happened with Vichai, the tragedy and the things that surrounded it, but it's a massive issue at the moment all over the world, the coronavirus. So we should just let it lie. I get it, we don't like Forest, and that's fine, but at the end of the day, we're all people, we're all humans. He's picked up the illness, he's picked up the disease, the virus. Let's just leave it at that. There's no need to make a joke out of it, make songs up, make chants about it. It's totally not necessary. So I would say that. The other one is the story coming out that Aston Villa are going to terminate Danny Drinkwater's loan because of a training ground bust up. Now for me, it's clear something's wrong. He's obviously got some issues, Danny Drinkwater. He's gone to Chelsea. And whilst, as I said in a tweet earlier, as Leicester football fans, solely as football fans, we're obviously glad his career hasn't skyrocketed since leaving us, because it was I've gone for a better club, I've gone for more money. It's one of them things where as a football fan you look at it and go, well, good, I'm glad it didn't work out. But you have to now look at things are obviously not going quite right for Danny. So Chelsea clearly don't want him. He's gone to Burnley and they've not wanted him. He's had a little bit of a disciplinary issue there. He's gone to Aston Villa and things clearly haven't worked out there if this training ground incident is true. For me, I would love to see the club, if he does get sent back to Chelsea, I would love to see the club just get in contact with Chelsea and say, look, let him come and train with our boys. There's a lot of players that were with Danny for a long time. Your Vardys, your Schmeichels, your Albrightons, your Matty James, Christian Fuchs, Wes Morgan. That team were like brothers. He might just need that support again. I'm not saying we should go and sign him up. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that for his own good and for the goodness of that player and his mental state, and he might not have mental issues. I might be completely off the mark here, but I just feel like he didn't have these issues when he was with us. There was never any training ground bust-ups at Leicester involving him. He was never an aggressive player. He was never seen to be that footballer. So it's happening now, and the only thing I can think of is happening because his career isn't working out. He's got some issues going on around his playing career. He's probably fully aware that he's made a mistake in his career, and he might just need that little bit of support back. So, as I said on Twitter, I would love to see the club just look at it and speak to Chelsea and just let him come to train with the lads that he knows. That they all got on really well. They were a really, really tight-knit bunch, and just for his own good, really, to see if we can help get his career back on track, if we can help him individually, because clearly, for me, just looking in from the outside, he didn't have these issues at Leicester. He's had issues at Burnley. He's had issues at Villa. It's clearly not worked out for him. Given everything that's going on as well, in terms of the big boost of mental health awareness, and other celebrities and other industries that have really, really suffered with it, and there's been really tragic and dire consequences of that. Can football not just for the good of a player here, for the good of a person more than a player, for the good of a human, just I feel like it could be an olive branch that could really help Danny Drinkwater just recover from the setbacks he's had. He's gone from Premier League title winner, Champions League football, England international, and probably would have been England first choice midfielder. If he'd have continued on the upward curve that he was on when he was with Leicester, I feel like he'd probably be in and around England's first team going into the Euros in the summer. He's definitely nowhere near that now, and that's just a consequence of the decisions that he made to leave and just how it's worked out for him. But as I say, I feel like maybe the club could do it. I'd like to think that we are the sort of club that would do it. I don't know if it's an option. It's just something I thought of, just sort of ad-libbing about. I saw the tweet, I saw the story sort of break earlier on, and thought he's clearly got more going on here than just it's a training ground bust up. It's the second club he's been at this season that hasn't worked out for him. Finally, I saw another little tweet earlier on about the club potentially negotiating a new contract with Çağlar Söyüncü. Brilliant decision. Whether or not that's the club's decision, or whether or not that's his agent saying, look, when he signed for you, he was this and this. He's done this and this for you now. He's a first team regular. He's pretty much undroppable. He's putting in excellent performances week after week after week. The agent's probably throwing out, clubs are looking at him, etc., etc. Can we, he's deserving of more money, and I don't know what money he's on. I've got no idea what money he's on now, but I would argue that he's probably worth more money, and if we can secure him for a couple more years, that increases his transfer value. Your asset then becomes more valuable to you. Therefore, to lose that asset, you will be compensated in a much bigger way. So, hopefully, that is there is truth in that rumour, and we are going to see Söyüncü potentially get a new contract. The James Maddison contract's still sort of rumbling on. a little bit. Not sure what the delays are there. Hopefully we can still get that done and over the line. And just lastly, as I'm parking up here, the Jamie Vardy injury situation, I honestly feel like will be prompting the club to look and accelerate their plans for a centre forward in the summer. It's something that I feel like we have to look at going forward, because Jamie Vardy's not going to last forever anyway, and we've seen with the injuries he's picked up post-Christmas, so he's had 3 separate injuries since Christmas, or just before Christmas and heading through the Christmas period into this year. And Rodgers has sort of mentioned it, that it is something that we now have to start looking at, is sort of a concern that he is picking up those injuries. So hopefully they're going to accelerate their plans to get other centre forwards in, which will increase squad depth, which can only be a good thing. So that's it from me today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, get the bell on. When I put the link on Twitter, retweet it, share it, like it. Any sort of support is massively appreciated. Cool.